Hey, you. You're finally awake.
Hello Smut Squad and welcome back to the channel. Sorry I've been away for a while, I just needed a bit of a break. We all need a break from time to time and I just took mine. Today we're looking at the Game Boy Color, particularly at those games which often get overlooked. Some of you may have heard of these before, but this is the games that I think, and as always my opinion is the only one that matters. Before we go any further, if you think I deserve it, please remember to hit that like, hype, and subscribe button, as well as listen to the weekly podcast and join our free Discord. But if you think I'm completely wrong about this and there's ones I need to talk about, or you want to talk about ones I mentioned, please let me know in the comments. Right, let's get into it, shall we? Some overlooked games for the Game Boy Color. Lufia, The Legend Returns. Now, I am still new to the Lufia franchise after playing the one on the Super Nintendo, Lufia 2, and my god, that is a good game. Everyone should give that a game. I still need to play Lufia 1, I'll have to go back to that one. This really does feel like the Super Nintendo games, just because of the writing and the characters, and obviously the graphics aren't as good as the Super Nintendo. However, there are significant differences compared to its Super Nintendo counterparts, as here it is more of a dungeon crawler, with generating dungeons every time you go in. There are no puzzles, and it's just enemies. And you actually in this game have 9 party members, and you kind of place them on a grid, and depending on where you place them is how much damage can be done. You only have 3 per go, which is... look, it sounds like a mess, but believe me, it works. And it's actually set 200 years after Lufia 2, and 100 years after Lufia 1. But the timeline's all over the place. Just bear with it, that's what you've got to do. In this game, you're playing as Wayne, and I find this game fantastic because the writing does make me feel like I'm definitely playing Lufia 2, because I fell in love with the story and those characters, and it can sometimes be very difficult to get the direction right, because some of them are rushed, some of them have tropes, and Lufia 2 didn't do that for me, and especially in this version of Lufia, The Legend Returns, did exactly that. It's not as grand as Lufia 2 on the Super Nintendo, but it's still a really enjoyable experience that Lufia fans will really like. Dragon Warrior Monsters, or depending on what part of the world you are, Dragon Quest Monsters. Yes, it is Pokémon-ish. Well, it's a clone of it, but it was kind of going for the same thing. In this game, you play as Terry, and you're off to try and save your sister, who has entered this magical world. And he goes in there and he's told, right, if you win this tournament, you get any wish. That's the plot, right? So basically, it's like he gets the Dragon Balls. So you do this, you can wish whatever you want. Imagine if he decided, you know what? F me sister, don't care about her. She was a bitch to me. She can rot in hell for all I care. I want money and my own waifu. We'll go back to that. Maybe that's what he wants. But either way, the only way that Terry's going to win this tournament is to get his own monsters to fight for him. Now in Pokemon, you have a team of 6 and you basically choose 1. Here it's a little bit different where you've got a team of 3. And unlike Azure Dreams, you've got to do some breeding. Any male, any female, and they will make something. So if you want to make a best monster, get going. No egg types here, just watch. You sick buggers. So the point of this is, train your monsters, make them have sex, and then go find new areas, rinse and repeat, win game. Get your sisters back, get the Dragon Balls. That's about it, right? Sums it up quite well. What is quite cool though, compared to Pokemon, is that the monsters you do have follow you round. This didn't happen until Pokemon Yellow, where Pikachu used to do that. To have it here was still pretty cool. Now, there aren't as many unique creatures as there are in Pokemon, as we know, there were 151 at the time. Here, there's a lot of palette swaps, which, okay, that's a little bit crap, but it's still a fun little title that did enough to spawn its own series. Like, the Dragon Quest Monster series is still going strong today, and you can still buy many of the games, and they're still a hoot to play. Survival Kids, or, depending if you're in Europe, Stranded Kids. Maybe they thought Survival Kids sounded a bit too much like Lord of the Flies and they decided to change it. Now, I've just been watching a lot of Outlast on Netflix, or Alone on SBS here in Australia, and this is pretty much the same thing, although there's no shipwreck in this. Basically, you're on your own. After a big ship crashed, you find yourself on your own on this island, and you've got to survive. Yeah. And the game is brutal. It really is. You start off with nothing until you find your bag, where you'll find a simple knife, an empty canteen, a wet match, and a radio. And the game then has realistic principles. Like, if you've got to survive and try and get off this island, the game tries to use realistic principles. You have to find food or water, or you're gonna die. And if you do find food, you've got to get it eaten quickly, because if you don't, it ends up spoiling. And also the problem is, you can't just, kill something and then eat it. You've got to cook it. And if it's raining, well, then you're gonna have no fire. So there's a lot of exploration you've got to do to this game and try and put realistic principles into this game. There's a lot of experimentation, really, with little direction from the game, so there's got to be trial and error in this. The game leaves it up to you how you want to survive. Now, spoiler, there is actually humans on there, but you've got to go find them. But the combining items can actually get you different things, like a fishing rod or a bow and arrow. But how would you do it if you were living in the wild with literally nothing? Would you go take shelter? Would you look for fire? Always get fire. And when I watch these things, fire is the most important thing. Fire is life. And there are actually 8 different endings that you can have, so this game encourages multiple playthroughs. And some of these are pretty grim. I'm not going to spoil it, some of them are pretty grim. But the good thing is, it's not a long game, so you'll probably want to play it again and again. Survival Kids is the most unique game on this list, and in reality, one of the most unique video games I've ever played. Because when do you ever have to just survive on an island all by yourself and, hope to God it all works? I don't know if the skills you obtain from this video game will translate into real life if you somehow find yourself on an island all by your lonesome. Either way, fire is life. Always get fire. Samurai Kid. Now, Samurai Kid is on this list, and it's one of those ones that was only released in Japan back in 2001. It's combining platforming, puzzle solving, and light exploration into a very surprisingly polished adventure. In this game, you play as Honamaru...
Mekasapa! Oh, to hell with it!
The Prince, we'll go with that. You basically set out to defeat the Demon King and save the land of Hinamoto. I can say that one at least. The story's pretty much straightforward and charming. It serves mainly as a backdrop for what's actually going on in the game. In this game, though, what's very clear is that he has 3 unique weapons. He's got the Gourd, which turns enemies into blocks that can be moved and used in puzzles, a katana that breaks obstacles and defeats enemies, and a fan that manipulates enemies and objects rather than directly attacking. And the game is constantly making you try and think. Rather than just simply jump and attacking enemies, you've got to think of, how can I use the enemies in this way? How can I use the switches? And you've got to look at the environmental mechanics. The level design is quite fresh during its whole 10 stages. Like, it's not a long game, but it basically encourages you to go back to earlier areas and basically try and find all the collectibles and secrets. I keep looking at this game and think, why didn't it get released over in the West? It would have been fantastic. It's definitely overlooked, but it's got incentive puzzle design, fantastic animation, look what you're seeing, and unique weapons mechanics, making it a very enjoyable experience. Although you can do it with a fan translation, which came out in 2021, I'd still wish I got this back in the day. Azure Dreams. Now, Azure Dreams, this is actually a stripped-down port of the PlayStation 1 version. The PS1 version is where it's at, but the Game Boy Color version still does a really good job. It still looks very good, and still has most of the mechanics that made the PS1 game so good. The story of this game is that you play the local Naruto. Well, basically because your father got lost in a mysterious tower, and now basically everyone hates you. Yeah, you're Naruto. But now you're old enough and able to become a monster tamer and go on the tower yourself and try and find all its mysteries and treasure. Yes, that's the big thing of this game. Everyone goes through this tower because they want to basically find what's in there. But it's a roguelike, so every time you go into the tower, it's all completely different. The point of this game is that you go through floor by floor, level by level, and you want to get its mysteries. You'll start off with your own monster because you're a monster tamer, but as you go through, you can find more monsters and eggs, so basically to make your monsters even better and make your little posse as good as it can be. You'll find treasures that you can basically bring back and try and build up the town, but you can also make your monsters breed. But aside from that, most of the elements from the PlayStation 1 game are still here, although they did remove one massive feature. They removed the ability to get my own waifu. Yes, you can't get a waifu in this game, only on the PlayStation version. Why have you taken the ability to get me a waifu? Like, I'm not a perv, much, but still, I want a waifu! You took that away. Instantly, this game should be destroyed. Imagination. Imagination is actually a card game. Yes, we've got enough of those in the world. We've got Yu-Gi-Oh!, Pokémon, Digimon, Final Fantasy, Magic the Gathering, and Imagination is another one. You have the ability to play this game actually in real life, and you can also watch a TV show that used to be out. Never heard of it. Had I heard of it, probably would have got hooked. In this game, you enter a world where the monsters are there, or dream creatures as they're called, and you can summon them with cards to fight your enemies. You can have 4 at a time, and essentially the whole point is collecting more of these cards or dream monsters to make the perfect combination. It's not much to really explain from what I'm showing you here, but it just reminds me of Card Captors. Remember that from the 90s? How good of a show that was. Okay, fair enough, she wasn't summoning monsters, and she was just using cards to summon abilities, but it still reminds me of that, and that's still really cool. Is it as good as Pokémon the trading card game? Because that for me is always the gold standard when it comes to the Game Boy Color. No. In reality, nothing beats that for a card game. I'll fight you all now. Pokémon trading card game is one of the best games on the Game Boy Color. Mainly for the music. The plot is stupid. I know I'm making this a Pokémon thing now. I don't care. It's my video. Yeah. And finally, Dragon Warrior 1 and 2. Now, we all know about Dragon Warrior or Dragon Quest, however you want to say about it, and some of you going, how is this overlooked? Because we all know about it. But did you know it's on the Game Boy Color? Yes, this is how I first played the game, and the first time I ever played Dragon Warrior or Dragon Quest, whatever. I'm going to say Dragon Quest, just easier. I was in hospital with pneumonia, and I was basically coughing up a lung at this point as half my lung had collapsed. Yeah, it wasn't a fun time. And I got asked, do you want to go play Dragon Quest for the podcast? So I thought, why not? And which version did I want to play? And I thought, why not play the Game Boy Color version? And I did. And I had an absolute blast playing from start to finish. And not only that, the second one's in there as well. Yes, they are smaller versions of the games, and you can say that the Super Nintendo versions are better, but it was still quite good fun to play. Now, these are more condensed versions of the original games, and due to the size of the screen, they had to look at the text. So really, the hero of Erdrick, or the legend of Erdrick, he's the main hero from another game. Well, I'm not going to spoil anything. He's called Loto in this one, which is actually the same as it is in Japan. I actually think the game looks as better as it did on the NES. Yeah, I think the Game Boy Color version's much better. You can fight me on that one, I think that's the case. Like, I had a great experience of playing in this in hospital, and especially when you can just jump straight into Dragon Quest 2, it's even better. Although the second game does keep that incredible difficulty spike which goes in the third act of it, or the third stage. Oh my word, nobody playtested that thing. But also, the main thing that made me laugh about the first one is what I'm going to show you here. When you're walking around with your sword, it doesn't look like a sword, it looks like your main character is walking around with a cock in his hand. Yes, that is definitely a penis, a big floppy penis. It's not floppy, but he's walking around with a penis in his hand. I'm probably going to get demonetized for the amount of times I've said that word. Please like the video, for God's sake. I like this game so much, I've actually got the Japanese version boxed up in my Dragon Quest collection. I do want to try and get the English ones if I can. I want to try and get as many Dragon Quest games as I can just to make my little collection even better. Because why not? What's the problem with more Dragon Quest? And that's it. Some overlooked games for the Game Boy Color. What did you think? Did you enjoy these titles, or are the ones I need to talk about? Please let me know in the comments below. I'll see you all in a few days from the video, but as soon as I release this, I'm going to be recording the podcast, so that should be out in maybe an hour or two from when I get this one published. So go check out that one, because we're doing Smash Brothers on the N64. Until then, I'll see you all soon. You take care of yourself. My name's been Danny. Follow your dreams.